one. We are recording. Take it away.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome to our fifth?
Yeah.
What have we done?
Yeah, no, it's five. We've done, what was the first one?
Taxi driver.
Taxi driver. Casablanca.
Vertigo.
Is this the fourth one? No, what did we do last month?
No, what did we do last month?
Hey, we did it. We all were out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for joining us, guys. That concludes us remembering how many we've done. All right. No, today this is the cult classic. You guys know what it is.
So the cult classic. It's front facing. So you've got, for anyone watching this on the Cult Popture 2 channel, what is this and how do they get involved?
Right. Yeah. This is a cult classic Zoom call where AJ and myself, the regular hosts of the Cult Popture podcast, are joined by some of our loyal patrons who, for $15 a month, you can join this call, and you get a whole bunch of other goodies as well. We talk about a different classic film randomly selected each month, and then it's popped up on YouTube for your viewing pleasure where you are watching this right now, unless you're one of the 4 people I'm talking to right now.
We're not allowed to watch it on YouTube. We can only watch it when it happens live.
No, yeah. I expect you to immediately forget what happened on the call. Today we're talking about My Cousin Vinny. It was a 1992 American comedy film directed by Jonathan Lynn. It stars Joe Pesci, Ralph Macchio, Marissa Tomei, who won an Oscar for her performance, and I'm sure we'll get to that later on in the call. And who wants to tell me what this is about?
I'll do it since it's basically my name in the title.
Wow. My cousin Vinny, more like our friend Vinny.
Good one, AJ.
Good one. You're the funny one. He got the validation he's wanted all his life, and look at him. All right, so My Cousin Vinny starts off with Ralph Macchio playing Bill Gambini and Mitchell Whitfield playing Stan Rothenstein, 2 good boys from New Jersey or New York. It's not really clear. It's New Jersey?
New York.
New York. 2 good boys from New York just traveling down
to take over, Vince.
Well, also another thing, is it like stated if it's like a road trip or if they're just hanging out in the South? Like they never explain why they're there.
I thought he was going to college.
Oh, he's going to college?
Because in the back seat, I think we're college papers.
Well, he never brings it up ever again. So these 2 good old boys from New York are
happens, which takes over his mind, I think.
Yeah, I think it's not just 2 guys going to college in the South. So 2 boys from New York traveling down Alabama who stop by a gas station to pick up some supplies of food or gas, and then they immediately leave. And then just down the road, Ralph Macchio's Bill Gambini realizes he has a can of tuna in his pocket that didn't pay for. So then his friend Stan starts freaking out. Well, isn't that like a crime? Down here, they're really brutal with criminals. And Bill's like, nah, don't worry about it. Then as that is going on, a police car turns on its sirens to pull them over. Then they start Stan starts freaking out. Bill's like, whatever, it's just a misunderstanding. And then they pull over, the police car stops, pulls out guns to leave the vehicle, and they're like, what the heck is going on? They are then taken to the police station where they are booked for murder, because as it turns out, that same exact gas station was a robbery and the clerk was murdered. And the last 2 guys who by a bunch of witnesses say that it was these 2 gentlemen, Bill and Stan, were the last ones there in their car. So then Bill and Stan start freaking out because, well, they don't start freaking out. They start thinking, all this over a can of tuna? They legit think they're being arrested for over tuna. And they start almost admitting to the crime. Well, Bill's like, I mean, yeah, I didn't know what was happening, but sure. And then Stan's like, I was just along for the ride. I didn't know he was going to do it. And all the cops are like, we got him, we got these boys. So then it is finally revealed through interrogation that they believe that Bill is the one who shot the clerk. And then Ralph Macchio keeps going, I shot the clerk. You shot the clerk. I shot the clerk, which
It's
they
like
took as a
question
confession.
mark. Yeah, it's like a question. He's like, he's like repeating it back to them, and it sounds like a confession.
This is basically a misunderstanding that keeps going on and on and on between the police and Bill and Stan. So then once Bill and Stan realize the predicament and how harsh the punishment would be for doing the murder, which would be death in the electric chair, who can save them but Bill's cousin Vinny? Ah.
Oh, I didn't get
That'll
that. That's why they
drop.
called it
That's why they call it that. So then he calls up his first. Bill calls his mother, talking about what has transpired. She starts freaking out, and then he's asking for a good lawyer. How much is that going to cost? Thousands of dollars, which they don't have. So then they find as a godsend that his cousin Vinny happens to be a lawyer. So then Vinny goes down there with his girlfriend, played by Pesci plays the titular Vinny, who is accompanied by his girlfriend, Mona Lisa Vito, played by Marissa Tomei, who stick out like a sore thumb in the South, which is the point of the movie, just so you know.
Yeah.
Just so you know. So then another misunderstanding ensues when Vinny goes to visit them in jail, and how am I going to politely say this?
Stan
we'll
says
save this.
that Vinny is there to make him his bitch, and he's actually there to be his lawyer. It's one of many misunderstandings in the film, but the kind of the crux of the rest of the story is it's revealed that like Vinny is a new lawyer and not very good at it, and the movie folds out from those sort of launching pads. Launching
fish out of
pads,
water kind of comedy.
Yeah, launching pads, which I thought instantly propelled it to, this is why this movie is revered. It's such a good setup for a film. I thought the misunderstandings, the like stupidness of it all, the fact that they're in a place they don't belong, the fact that Vinny is incompetent. I was like, this is a courtroom drama where you're the lawyer. You know, you, the viewer who doesn't know anything about law, is the lawyer, and I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, and it is like kind of one of the things that people talk about when they talk about this movie is that like lawyers look at this movie as being the most accurate courtroom film. I think it's I watched there's the channel Legal Eagle on YouTube. I watched his video about it.
Watch that video too.
I watched it too.
Oh yeah. Brent, did you do your homework and watch it?
Hold on, I'm gonna go watch it
now. I regularly watch Legal Eagle, but I didn't watch it for this one.
But so
again,
obviously,
Brent, watch what's assigned to you.
So like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like, they take liberties with certain things because it's a comedy, but it's like if you actually look at the like cross-examinations, the way they cross-examine witnesses, and the difference between like a direct questioning and what's the other one? Expert, or whatever. But anyway, the way he like leads different witnesses down these paths is actually like really, really well done. And like even the prosecutor's opening statements are like something that not a lot of movies get right. They kind of hype it up a little bit and make it a little bit more dramatic. And I think it's one of those things where like in the same way that like Scrubs is actually like said to be like the most well-researched medical show that that like these comedy films, and I think it's especially like for lawyers in the same way that Office Space is like a lot funnier if you've worked in an office, that I imagine like they would be watching this be like, oh my god, I know people like that, that's happened to me, that kind of thing. And so that's kind of like one of the reasons this movie's so revered is because of how accurate it gets the American legal system, while
That's
also
awesome.
having some fun with it. Had anyone seen this movie before?
Just me.
Your name?
I watch your show sometimes. No,
You watch the movies sometimes too.
No, I grew up with this. This is very much like what I consider a dad comedy. Like we would go to the little place down the corner, and rent the movie for $1, and this would be what we would get. Like we would get this, or we would get like Coneheads, you know, Tommy Boy, like all those late 80s,
really
early
top,
90s.
top shelf kind of thing.
Yeah, lots of Chevy Chase.
Oscar worthy.
Right, this is probably the only one of those. But yeah, so I had seen it several times growing up, but I hadn't seen it in probably 10 years since this week, since I watched it. So it was fun to watch it again.
Is Joe Pesci to dad drama what Chevy Chase is to dad comedy?
Joe Pesci is never really in this kind of stuff, to be honest.
You know,
he's in Home Alone.
Home Alone, yeah.
Goodfellas, and Irishman, but he was really picky with his roles, so he didn't really go into this route.
Mm.
Phil Hartman more filled that kind of role as it got later in the 90s.
He's in
That's a
Lethal
great
Weapon.
Oh yeah, he is in Lethal Weapon.
Okay, so would you like, because he's obviously like a comedic character, but the film feels like it. Like if the film had to be in a if the film had to be a comedy or a drama, like where they're putting it in the video store, where would you guys think it would be put? Do you think it's a comedy or a drama?
Comedy.
It's got to be a comedy.
I guess so, but it's like one of those rare comedies that gets Oscar buzz because it's like. It
was only nominated for one Oscar.
Oh, okay, really?
It was only not.
Yeah,
and it was Marissa Tomei, and she won. And
it blows my mind.
Yeah, like this is kind of like a long-standing Oscar bit of controversy that was finally put to bed recently. So she won, and actually I'll pull up who she was up against, but she won the Oscar, and it was. For a long time, people assumed that she didn't deserve to win, and that the person just read out the wrong name, and which is such a mean thing to think of someone. But then in 2017, when the La La Land Moonlight controversy happened, that kind of confirmed that if the wrong name is read out, they will correct the mistake.
The Oscars
which is so funny.
will ruin the vibe of the night to get the accurate results, which is something I wouldn't do if I was running the Oscars and the wrong name was called. I'd just be like, I'll just let it go. And no one's gonna know.
So she was up against Judy Davis for Husbands and Wives, Joan Plowright for Enchanted April, Vanessa Redgrave for Howard's End, and Miranda Richardson for Damage.
Never seen any. I was ready to go. Well, of course, people were mad that Marissa Tomei won, but I have never seen any of those before.
Those Oscars, I'm big on the Oscars, and the Oscars has this really weird culture where they love repeat nominations and think that people, when they get nominated enough, will eventually earn the award. So for a newcomer who's 27 years old to come out of nowhere in a comedy. It was so dismissive because she's so young and unexperienced and doesn't have the same
just 27
pedigree as all these classically trained actresses. Natasha Richardson or Miranda Richardson?
Miranda.
I don't know that one.
I wonder if we, because that sounds like such a down year for nominations. Like none of those movies sound interesting. I wonder if Howard's End had won, like the actress, then if we would even know as 20, 30 somethings, if we would even know about My Cousin Vinny, if someone else had won the movie, had won the award.
Yeah, right. So I think that's the reason it stayed in public consciousness, is because it got a controversial Oscar behind it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, she's fantastic in the movie. She's only 27 years old, like first kind of big role, and I'm sure there was a sexual awakening for many, many people. But it's such a feel-good character as well. Like the movie is like, it's a great like feel-good movie, but that character specifically is like the plot of Legally Blonde condensed into like a couple of scenes with this character.
Right.
And of course Legally Blonde being another great legal movie. But yeah, it's that kind of like using this knowledge that you wouldn't think would come in handy in a legal proceeding, coming in handy.
I started the movie knowing she won an Oscar and that people thought she didn't deserve it. So I was like, all right, that's the only lens.
You're right. All right, Marissa, earn this bloody Oscar.
And I thought it was really interesting because These days it feels like Oscars discourse is a lot around like how Oscars do not care for comedies, you know, and like comedies barely ever get any Oscar love when they probably should. I remember seeing a thing saying that Rachel McAdams in Game Night, if the Oscars cared about comedy, should be a shoo-in, right? And it was a really interesting kind of perspective that I hadn't thought of before. And it's interesting that whether My Cousin Vinny is like a comedy or like a slightly, you know, it's comedy with clout.
Highbrow comedy.
Oh, yeah. Highbrow comedy. It's like
eyebrow comedy.
Eyebrows.
Hold on. They mentioned farts in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay, but they mentioned farts in Good Will Hunting. There's a whole emotional arc around farts.
That's true. Okay.
So, but despite that, you like my point is if someone said My Cousin Vinny is a drama, I'd be like, sure, maybe it is, right? But like Marissa Tomei's character, that's a comedic character through and through. And I was sort of
performance.
Yeah. I was waiting for the Oscar scene. I was waiting for the dramatic, you know, crescendo where she like proves like that she has an Oscar-y performance in her, and it doesn't really come. But she has as you said, Richard, at the end she's put on the stand and essentially clinches the court case for the win because she knows heaps about cars. And I think that's the Oscar scene. I think it's...
Well, yeah, and it's like, yeah, because when you talk about an Oscar scene, you're talking about like in the traditional sense.
Yes.
Obviously, whereas like a little dog... Okay, fine. Anyway, yeah, but like that is just as impressive acting.
I agree, yeah.
Right,
as,
you can't handle the truth.
Know,
that's what you were looking for, but instead you got, you know, the 1954 Bel Air didn't come in a 327.
Yeah.
That's bad.
She knows heaps about cars, and it saves the movie because it basically invalidates the evidence that the prosecutor has about what car was there, and they're able to pin it on another couple of guys.
I did find out as well something interesting that had Mona Lisa refused to take the stand, he actually did theoretically had a backup that he would actually be able to take the stand himself because it's not done very often, but he could call himself to the stand as an expert on general automotive, and it would be like, there's no way at the start of the trial he could have known that would come in handy. And so it's like a last resort that you're allowed to call yourself to the stand.
Yeah,
I see you also read the IMDb trivia.
I did think it was interesting that it's not, and this is maybe a slight bad thing. I really liked this movie, but maybe this was a glitch in the story for me, which was that it wasn't framed in a way where she's the only one that knows. Vinny knows too. Vinny like has the information as well. And yeah, it did I kind of wish they'd been able to rig it in a way where she's like, oh my God, you have to call me to the stand because I know. And then maybe she would lead him through it. Though I did like that they were in a fight during it and it was kind of the reparation.
That's great.
I think that the fight is so important because the reason that she's even invested in this case at all is because she wants to marry Vinny.
Yeah.
But not only that,
really come up in a huge way until like halfway through the movie. Sorry, Dan, jump in, please.
No. I just want to say that the one thing I love about this movie that really won me over, because the third act we all can agree is a 5-star movie. The entire last 30 minutes is amazing, and the really crux of it is the heart. Yes, exactly. The real heart of it is that Joe Pesci's character Vinny, his whole fatal flaw is he does not want to accept help, and her whole thing is seeing him floundering, wanting to help him, and him refusing her help at every single turn when she was right every step of the way. And there are little concessions he gives from time to time of like, okay, you know more about this law than I do, or disclosure, and these little hints throughout, and then just the end of her not wanting to help him and him finally like, please help me, like I'm finally ready. But perfect. It was just like that I think that every every hostile couple should watch that, especially men who are afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, it's a very good Chekhov's gun movie because everything is kind of set up, not just in the fact that that like a lot of the random information they learn about where are they in the film? What state?
Alabama.
Alabama. Like they
Down
pick
Brent's
up,
way.
They pick up all this this information about like grits and tire mud, which ends up coming in handy.
Yeah.
Very Slumdog Millionaire in a way. But as well as that, the fact that like the relevance of Mona Lisa knowing about cars is so crucial to the end, and so was their tumultuous relationship, because you see them argue a few times throughout the movie, and so it does that thing which I think I've talked about on Movie Club before, the blending of the like female story and the male story, the internal arc and the external arc, where not only is he externally winning the case, but internally he's revealing that
accepting of help
and mending their relationship in a really fantastic way. And I thought the characters in this film were spectacular. I loved all the characters in this movie. Like,
I mean, also on that point, I think outside of that big Oscar scene with her at the end, I think overall her performance was awarded because she could hold her own with Joe Pesci and evolve it. Like, it's for the 20-something to hold their own with Joe Pesci, because he easily could have like just overtaken her in every single scene with a lesser actor.
Yeah, and he's also 49 in this movie, and she's 27. Just want to point that out.
The 90s. Hollywood.
Ralph Macchio, the very boyish Ralph Macchio sitting next to Dan, is 31.
Okay, I have a question. I have a very important question about him in this movie that was bothering me. I don't know if anyone noticed this. His mustache appeared and disappeared throughout. Do they shave people in prison?
He was actually shooting another movie at the same time, and so they didn't have the money to put the mustache on.
But do they allow razors in prison? Because they were very clean shaven the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, are they not growing facial hair? What's happening?
No, you can shave and get haircuts in prison.
Yeah, that's the commissary, man.
Yeah, and then you can cut people.
Goddamn human right.
Yeah.
Dan's never spent time in prison. Gosh.
No, I just can grow a mustache as well as he can. So I'm like, how does it grow back and go away?
Can I ask a question of especially Brent? Have you guys had grits, and what exactly are
I've
grits?
had grits. You could have asked me.
No, I have not.
Well, I didn't want to hear from you, AJ. I hear enough from you.
Had grits.
So, Vince, you haven't. Dan, have you? No, but Brent, you're the expert, I guess.
Sure. So I as a point of this conversation, I live in Houston, and grits are a very southern food. They are literally, it is ground hominy, and hominy is a made corn type thing.
Right.
So it's ground into something that's kind of like an oatmeal.
Right.
And it's similar to oatmeal. I'm not a huge fan of it, but what you do is you put butter in them, and I will put either honey or sugar, and it's decent. Yeah, I'm not
like how different is it from oatmeal in terms of like taste?
Say again.
How different is it from like oatmeal or porridge in terms of taste?
It's a little more bland, if you could believe that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why
a food known for being bland.
That's why the butter is a big part of it, right?
Right.
And the lard.
Yeah, it's like a comfort food kind of thing, right?
For sure. Yeah, it's a lot of what you would call soul food in America came from essentially from slavery and people who were given leftovers and foods that were not chosen to be good. So when you eat things like ham hocks or
right, and then all the white people got jealous of them. They're like,
well, right.
No, we want them back. We want them back.
Yeah.
Food too.
Yeah.
Can I be? Oh, sorry. Can I be critical of a couple things in the movie, of things I don't think is age well, and what kind of?
I prefer you not to.
Yeah, this is a classic.
It's a classic.
I talked about something I didn't like in it before, so go for it.
The two things that struck out to me, I'm going to go with the minor thing first, because what I learned about it, changed my mind about it, is I thought the stutter joke stuff was a bit much and a bit weird to watch now. I don't know if you guys felt the same.
It did feel like there would be more sensitivity. So for those who haven't seen the movie and are watching this on YouTube, the public defender who Stan hires because he doesn't trust Vinny gets up to give his opening statement and screws it up because he can't get a sentence out without stuttering, and he says he's really nervous. Continue.
I was waiting for the punchline, Dan. I felt like I saw it and I was like, okay, they're gonna do something with this. And then it never came. It was just like
gets fired immediately. Yeah.
It was like, that's why he sucks. It's like, okay, all right.
Like I thought he was gonna stutter, but then they find big evidence, and then that's when he's confident and can like talk like fluently without stuttering. I figured that's where the character was gonna go.
But it's not his movie. Like the point of the character is to make Vinny, to reveal how good of a lawyer Vinny is.
Right.
I thought he was going to bring the UK into World War II.
So who? Very fun.
Why'd she say
the
that?
public defender speech. Did any of you read the IMDb trivia that changed my mind about this?
Yes, as has been well established, I have read it, and that's usually all the research I do. Continue.
The actor who plays the public defender who has a stutter actually does have a stutter in real life and didn't want to accept the role at first until he was convinced by a close friend of his to do the role. So the actor who plays having a stutter actually does have a stutter. So he played that up. And then he struggled for years of being typecast as a stutterer because he did it so effectively because he was tapping into the real stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
The close friend was the director as well. So out of out of 100, okay.
So just the stuttering lawyer. I think that it's important for the plot functionality that something is wrong with the public defender. The problem is they pick something that you would now see as punching down. I mean, I don't think it's extremely offensive necessarily, but it is like, I think there could have been better decisions to go with. I thought because he was from Alabama, it was going to be like a making a murderer situation where he was going to be like, you are guilty, let's get you a good guilty
plea deal. Yeah, exactly.
It happened with a real public defender.
yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Idea.
Because like the biggest thing for me, like knowing about, although I know from like Better Call Saul of Legal Eagle, is that most cases are settled outside of court, are plea dealed, right? Of just accepting a lower charge. For instance, can we all agree it wouldn't be first degree, it would be second degree, if anything?
Yeah.
Because
it wasn't premeditated. Yeah, anyway. That's all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's the kind of thing like they're trying to convict them of first degree.
They want them to have the chair.
Yeah.
So I don't know
we don't
a
know
lot
that would
about
stick.
Alabama law, but I can tell you in in Texas, that capital murder, which is the highest murder charge that we have, is murder. It's when you commit a crime, like commit murder during the process of committing another crime. So since they would have been committing armed robbery and murdering, it would have been capital murder.
That's really interesting.
Right.
There is a bit, and Dan will know this as well, because it's on the IMDb trivia page. But that when the judge says, "I expect you to be, fluent in Alabama law," that's pretty unreasonable because the Alabama Constitution is the longest one in the United States at 300,000 words compared to the Constitution of the United States Constitution, which is 4,000 words.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why Alabama was picked. That feels like the piece of information that the director learned and then was like, imagine if like a lawyer from New York had to try a case in Alabama.
Yeah, well, I think as well.
That could be a film idea.
The director is like does have a law degree. It's your cousin.
On that note, I want
Marvin Vinny.
You know that new movie you're looking for?
So I think a bunch of people are talking over each other. Who's talking now?
On that note, I want to ask AJ and Richard. You are not American, Just
No.
just putting it out there.
Wait, what?
Lovely.
Wanted to ask what
dare
your
you.
whether Alabama was sort of new to you in terms of on film or because you've watched a lot of movies. That's probably the most like exposure to like that kind of culture. It seems like want to know your perspective as a non-US.
Well, see, because
citizen.
what AJ said about the Constitution thing, to me, I was like, oh yeah, they would have been like, oh, what's some fucking stupid racist state we could put it in where like the jury and all the lawyers are going to be stupid? Of course, it's Alabama.
Yeah.
And that was what I kind of like, these are kind
It's
of
very
the
New York sympathetic, this movie.
yeah, these are the kind of stereotypes you pick up watching film. But also they talk about it a lot in the film that they're like scared to be down there because they've heard all the stories and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can find a picture. But the jury that they show is one of the most, and I hope I'm not confusing this because I also watched Ernest Goes to Jail this week, and
What a double feature!
But the jury was one of the most diverse juries I've ever like.
Yeah, it was this film. Yeah,
absolutely not what you would see in Alabama. Like,
Right.
no offense, whatever. It was like you had
I
every.
offend them. I don't care.
Yeah, it was.
Your people. I don't care.
what do you mean, you people?
To answer your question, Dan, and outside of America, you kind of have like at least for me, I know the 4 stereotypes of top, bottom, east, west, right? So I know that the southern states are the hillbillies, right? And I know that the New York are like, brash and rough, and that LA is like sunshine, happiness, and maybe a little bit
super woke liberal left.
No, but also
Hell yeah!
Also maybe a little bit dumb as well. There's like a dumb stereotype,
like the
too.
Valley Girl kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah. And I only
Bro.
really know northern stuff because of like Fargo. So I wonder if,
and then Hawaii from Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah. And I wonder if northern states
And Alaska from the Simpsons movie
aren't really a culture that people might know about as much if they haven't seen something like Fargo. It's like the middle states that I have no idea what to think of.
Well, I guess that the northern states are like essentially just Canada, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of the tropes you see of like Minnesota and things like that are also like the same kind of things you see in Canada. But then you've got like Seattle and Washington, which is right up north, right? And that's grunge. That's all I know about that.
Yeah.
Is that the jury?
Yeah. Just found them while I was sitting here.
They were just downstairs. He said, "Come on in, guys."
There are certain states that I could stereotype for you. Like I know.
Okay, let's go through them.
Let's go.
One that maybe doesn't get to that you wouldn't think maybe New Zealanders would know is like I know that like Portland, which I know isn't a state, but Portland is like the that's where all the authors live,
Oregon.
That's where that because Portlandia, I've seen Portlandia, so that's my idea of Portland. But I don't really know what people are like in Nebraska, even though I have seen Nebraska, the film. I have no idea what I would expect from someone from Nebraska or Missouri or.
So surprisingly, that's kind of on point because one of the very few things I know about Nebraska is that, like in Nebraska and Kansas, one of the big industries is call centers, and they put call centers there because they have the most neutral accent. Like you don't want a call center in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
If everyone who's calling you, they talk like,
hey,
hey.
you want to buy a new internet service provider?
So they put
Forget about it.
They have a very neutral. They're not East Coast and they're not West Coast. They kind of have that,
One of my favorite stories. This is a story a friend of mine told me who had students stay at his house in high school who are from Nebraska, and they were talking about accents, and the student was like, "We're from Nebraska, we don't have an accent," which is a very funny thing to hear when there's someone speaking an accent that you don't have.
My roommate is actually from Kansas, and yet I can't identify anything really Kansas. Like I've asked him about it, but like again, it's very much like it's like an absence of a stereotype. Like that's like the weird thing about it.
Yeah,
because it's mostly porn.
That might be true of every middle of a country culture, right? Because
where is that for New Zealand?
Well, New Zealand's very thin.
Just not south.
Everything's on a beach, right? So there's, unless you're in like something, there's like small. Is there any major town, Richard, in the middle of New Zealand?
Not really. Like nowhere in New Zealand is like more than 2 hours from the beach.
Yeah. So the like we have stereotypes, but it's like, I think I've always noticed, especially in America, like anyone next to the ocean, next to a dock, next to like a harbor where people are coming in, tend to be more world weary. And maybe like, I guess the stereotype, no offense, Brent, but the stereotype of the southern states of America is like, hey, we're all racist hillbillies, right? And so that comes from,
Brent actually said that on our first Zoom call.
that I imagine.
Roll the clip.
That in my
because Texas is so up its own ass that we don't consider ourselves the South. We're Texas.
Right.
We are
the Republic of Texas.
Well, and also Texas is getting a lot more liberal as well, isn't it?
We're trying to, for sure.
Yeah.
Austin is crazy liberal. Yeah.
My theory would be, because it's so close to Mexico, they put the what they would call a problem as front and center for southern states, right? Whereas America's not as racist towards Canada as they are to Mexico, so the northern states have a more gentle approach, because their influence is just another mostly white nation, right? Where they immediately accept it, and so it's like polite, racist, rough, airhead. That's America. Those are the four corners of America from my perspective. Like I hear Alabama and my head goes Alabama. You know what I mean? Like so that's where, as I say, like the middle nations, the middle states, I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah, well, the middle states are kind of just known for being very sparse and boring. Like shit like Wyoming is like, who fucking cares about Wyoming?
God, I don't know a thing about Wyoming.
Well, that's the whole point. That's the stereotype of Wyoming, is that no one gives a shit about it.
So speaking of racism, great segue. This is an interesting question, because I noticed that like, so racism towards Italians is very much a funny thing now, and very much like this thing where people complain, right? So my question is like,
even calling it racism is like, it's not racism.
It's just funny.
This is 29 years ago. 29 years ago this was made, or 30 years when it was filmed. So the question is like, is how much of there is coding of that within this, or was there in the script, or unintentional or not? I'm just asking if anyone has any insight.
I think it's almost like, because like AJ said before, it's so sympathetic towards the Italian. It's not like, I don't feel like you're supposed to watch this in Alabama and be like, oh, look at those city guys, don't know what they're doing. Like, you're supposed to watch it being like, they're the underdog, you're rooting for them. And it's like, you're being racist towards the dumb hicks in Alabama.
Well, the question is, are the hicks racist towards them? I guess my question, because like...
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think racist is the right term. It's like it's the same, it's the same bias as when like a boomer sees you on your cell phone. Like, it's like, oh, your way is wrong, my way is right, and it's
I think that it's a lot of it's to do with like just the character of Vinny as well, and not necessarily like Italian stereotypes, because it is like he does
Vinny
learn to play the game.
Right, he is a putz.
But it's about like learning to play the game and shit like that,
Well, and I think that it's an interesting what I would probably call like a second wave racism, if that's even a term. Maybe I'll coin it right now.
Loving these terms.
because the Italian Americans went through a lot of that when they first came to the country. I mean, the same way that the Irish Americans did, and things like that. So there was genuine racism to these groups who eventually became white. But the racism that we see in this movie and that we see today is more of an ironic racism, it's self-aware. And so I think that that's the difference, is that they're comfortable in the pastiche or the characterization, the caricaturization of the person.
Also, there's nothing offensive about saying, my pizza. Like...
well, because the stakes aren't as high. There isn't a context for it, because white judges aren't throwing Italians in jail because they don't like Italians.
Right.
What?
Literally, the movie is about that.
He is Chilean, though. He is Chilean. That should be noted.
Yeah,
that
he's Chilean.
There is that element.
The movie doesn't make this point, though. I feel. I don't think it's like they're going to jail because they're Italian.
No. Yeah.
Brett, you have maybe the most obscure Zoom background that anyone has ever had right now. Without context, what's your background, Brent? Oh, it's the jury from a screenshot from My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah, maybe I could find another one while we're sitting here. I wanted to get a good one with there it is. Let me take this. It's actually from harvard.edu, actually, while I'm looking at it.
Ooh. Fun fact, the actor plays the judge went to Harvard, I believe.
And then died after making this movie.
Yeah, he immediately died.
Yeah, 93, yeah.
Yeah, he was Herman Munster in The Monsters.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I thought
and he's from New York.
He was great because he was like having watched Trial of the Chicago 7 recently, which is like, you know, the whole point is like it's this frustrating, like infuriating judge. And then this one, it's like he's like an antagonistic force against the titular character, but you know he's not like a dick about it. Like there's maybe one example in the film where he's like does something just to be a dick to Vinny when he allows the witness despite his protest. But yeah, I think it was like really well done, the character and the way it kind of the interactions, and like that by the end of the film you kind of get the sense that he actually wants Vinny to succeed. He's like, I need to make sure he's playing by the books, but I would love to see him do it, you know, like I think he's rooting for the underdog a little bit.
He's the linchpin of what makes this a good movie, and what makes this a good movie is exactly that underdog aspect. What makes this a good movie is it's about a guy like you know, audience in general. It's about a guy like you, and he has to put up with the stuffy Alabama court system, and you don't get that without the judge being the character.
And the 5 a.m. wake-up calls from what God knows what.
Yeah.
And as someone I grew up next to train tracks growing up in Pennsylvania, and like
I was gonna say in Hawaii.
I got so used. No, there's no train here, sadly. I got so used to that train that it didn't bother me at all. But every once in a while I'd be like on a call and be like, "What is that? Damn!" Like what? And like what's going on? I'm like, the train. So that spoke to me in this film of like this normal thing that is so jarring to everyone else. I love that. That was such.
Imagine if trains were introduced to Hawaii the same way like stoats were introduced to New Zealand, like a pest.
I was gonna say, you mean like frogs in Australia?
Yeah. Someone introduces trains to Hawaii and they run rampant and take over.
They just start mating everywhere.
You joke, but that's what happened to the mongoose.
Yeah, well, I am joking because you can't do that with the train. Unless like the industry starts popping.
So I changed my background to the prosecutor guy here. I love him, and he did basically this exact role for like 10 years.
Yeah, I play a prosecutor. I'm a professional prosecutor.
Well, but like he did the father in Son-in-Law with Pauly Shore. Did you ever see that one?
No.
So
Pauly Shore tells me exactly when this was.
Yeah. So So Pauly Shore, so this girl went to college and she met Pauly Shore, who was the resident advisor for their dorm. And then she brought him back to her very Southern and like farmer dad. And he was, even though he was super, like obviously this guy's a learned man because he's an attorney. It was the same level of straight man against, you know, like that, like again, like Joe Pesci's caricature. But yeah, he always does this, and it's always like he was I feel like an unsung hero in this movie because he was such a just a serious kind of pain in the ass the whole time. But like you needed that for a character like Vinny to really
But again, it's like they could have made that character so much more evil as well. Like, and this was funny. This was one of the things like when I watched Making a Murderer, and at the end, it's like, oh, and by the way, Ken Kratz was also like a rapist, and it's like, the film didn't need that, you know. Like, it's like that's unrealistic. Yeah, it like, yeah, that was so funny because it's like, if that happened in a movie, I'd be like, he was just doing his job. He doesn't need to also be evil.
There is one more character actor that I want to point out that like, because I think we've almost mentioned all the actors, but very important is James Rebhorn, who plays the so-called expert on tire tracks. I don't know if you know him. Oh yeah, I've seen him. Oh, look, shows on my green screen. Just hang out with the boys.
It's so funny.
He's a very good character actor. And I just want to shout out to him real quick.
Nice.
He's
cool. Well, I hope he's listening.
Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents. He's like or something like that. He died. He died
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's also in the 1994 classic Blank Check, which everyone reveres and loves.
It's not on the list, so we'll never talk about it.
No. But so let's just as we get to wrap up, what did everyone actually think of this movie? Like, let's score it out of 100, let's say. Because I can tell you what has Rotten Tomatoes, and that is, let me double check, 86.
Wait, 90. Okay.
86.
I'm just going to butt in and say I agree with that for the most part, because one thing that bothered me about this is that the first 2/3, in my opinion, are all set up for the last third, and there's some jokes like the stutter thing, like the prison assault, like misunderstanding that really kept me back from fully enjoying it. But the last third is absolutely a 5-star movie, so I would agree with that number actually.
I think it's pretty apt. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. And I think the one thing that kind of took up that half a star was maybe like a little bit of a lack of focus, that like we start off with one point of view and then it switches, but it doesn't feel like it fully switches. Like I would want to see like, and I don't know if it would work, but maybe if the film had like started with Vinny, or like we had a scene of Vinny and then we meet these guys and then they call him, or like, or maybe just focus on like what the two kids are going through a bit more. But it's kind of trying to have its cake and eat it too. But as you said, like the last third of this movie is fantastic, and I thought the first 2/3 were fantastic as well. But 86, 90 I think is definitely what it deserves.
I'd give it 86. I've given it 4 stars. But you know what I would give 5 stars to and give 100% to is the title of this movie. Love My Cousin Vinny.
Oh yeah,
as a title. Such a good title.
Bomb.
Yeah, that's awesome, because what the title means a lot more than its surface level. So it's, for those who haven't seen it, who are watching this on YouTube, the reason it's called My Cousin Vinny is because Vinny is Bill's cousin, and he's the only lawyer they know. So they're like, I'll call my cousin Vinny. Smash cut to.
Well, he'll do it for free.
Yeah.
Right, because they mentioned it was going to take like $100,000.
Yeah. I actually have a cousin who's a lawyer.
What's his name?
That's his name.
It's actually a woman.
I said their name.
I don't want to give her a shout out.
Her name's Vanessa. I thought that My Cousin Vinny's so great is because it's not only like kind of catchy, and it's kind of orally aesthetically pleasing, right? But it's also it also conveys the nature of getting your you know, the cheap family member to do the work for you. It's my
Right.
cousin.
Yeah,
Vinny,
right,
you know?
yeah.
It's not like my lawyer Vinny.
It's not just Vinny.
It's not just Vinny, it's my cousin Vinny. That's the identity of the film. Is it's you want a lawyer, you want the best lawyer, I can give you the freest and most convenient lawyer, you know. And it's such an underdog story, this movie, and that adds to it, I thought. So really like the title. It's one of my favorites.
And what about you, Vinny?
Personally, this has made Joe Pesci's Vinny my number one Vinny in any fictional media. I actually have a list. I will quickly go through them.
Please.
It's a top 4 because. Okay, number 1, Vinny in this movie. Number 2, Vincent, Tom Cruise in Collateral. I think that is a phenomenal Vinny, but this Vinny is better because he's likable. Number 3, Vincent from Cowboy Bebop the movie, Knocking on Heaven's Door, because it's anime and he's a great villain. And number 4, Over the Hedge, Vincent the Bear.
Are you telling me that Vincent Vega from is it Pulp Fiction? He doesn't make it in?
I think he's fine.
He's not as good as the bear.
Number
from
5,
Over the Hedge?
Underneath the Bear. Number 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, this is controversial, but I think Pulp Fiction's all right.
What about
next
What
month?
what about Andy Garcia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Andy Garcia's Vinny Corleone in the Godfather 3?
Yeah.
And how do you rate yourself? Where are you on the ranking?
He's not fictional.
I'm not fictional.
Oh, that's right.
Wait, I just started disappearing.
You just leave the call.
Alrighty. Well, speaking of disappearing, I've got I believe it is my turn, Richard, to make everyone guess what the film is.
Wait, did Brent write it? Did Brent write it?
Oh, sorry, Brent.
No, he didn't. AJ didn't want to let him because he's racist towards Southerners.
They're all dumb. They're all dumb.
It's my word. I can say it. I think that I would actually rate it lower than all of you. I enjoy the movie, but
You're offended.
You're right. No, I don't think I enjoy it. I totally agree with the third act as being good, but I think the rest of it is very formulaic. And it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't wow me in the same way that I don't know, right? Like, I'm trying to think of other movies. Like, I would probably give it like a 78 or 79, like high 70s, almost an 80.
It's interesting you say that it's formulaic, because I thought it was intentionally bucking the formula. It's like taking A Few Good Men, but making Tom Cruise Joe Pesci.
A Few Good Men actually came out at the same year as this, worth pointing out.
There you go.
What was that?
A Few Good Men came out the same year.
Oh, no kidding.
Mm.
Wow. No, I think it's so simple. Like, which is good, but I don't think that it
there's a ceiling on how good that idea can be.
Yeah, maybe
the pacing is
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
We have got a
so
list
sorry
here.
for totally ruining your very smooth transition.
No,
AJ.
dude, have you listened to our podcast? It happens.
Yeah.
All right, we have got 204. Richard, have we added a new film to the
I
list?
have. Tell us what it
Rango.
is. Yeah, Rango came out exactly 10 years ago today.
That one's better than the last ones. With like the last ones have been.
Well, one of the last ones we've added
okay,
is The
sorry.
Social Network, so that is fair
didn't
enough.
see that.
It's not unprecedented to put a good movie on there.
So the way this works, if you haven't done this before, is we've got a list of 204 films which you would consider classic. The rule is they can't have a sequel, because then we'd just do them on Film Franchise Fortnights, and they have to be more than 10 years old, which is why every month we add a new film to the list, which doesn't have to be a cult classic, which is the reason why in amongst this we've also got Yogi Bear and Gulliver's Travels and Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Galhool.
It is worth pointing out.
Zack Snyder's Rise of the Guardians. Just want to make sure we understand.
Legend of the Guardians.
Yeah, Rise of the Guardians is the one about Santa.
Yeah.
It is worth pointing out before we get to the random number generator. You reminded me of sequels, and this actually did have a proposed sequel to it,
really?
which would have Vincent Gambini practicing law in England. But when Marissa Tomei dropped out, they hired someone else to rewrite the script without her, and they just couldn't make it work, so they shelved it. But then in 2017, a mystery author began a My Cousin Vinny novel series with him, with Mona Lisa working as like his investigator. The most recent book, A Wing and a Prayer, which is the third one, came out in August of last year.
Huh. When you brought up Scrubs and talking about Fargo as well, this did actually strike me as one of those movies you could turn into a TV show.
Yeah, nice.
Oh.
But also, there's another very interesting continue the franchise for this film, which Dan, I think you might want to tell us about.
Wait.
Album.
Oh, yes, thank you. I almost forgot. So, the Joe Pesci reprised this role, not in a film, not in a TV show, not in a cameo on any of the above, but as an album called
6 years later.
Yeah, in 1998, Vincent LaGuardia Gambini sings "Just for You," and the best way to describe this album is rap lounge. I don't know how else to describe the styles, but it starts with the song "Yo Cousin Vinny," "Wise Guy," "Take Your Love and Shove It." Those are different song titles, and it's absolutely trash amazing. It's hilariously bad in every way.
Why does Joe Pesci do this?
This is his second album.
It's the 90s. It's the 90s, you know. Bruce Willis had a music career. You know, anyone can do it.
I've got his album. I've got Bruce Willis's "The Return of Bruno" on vinyl.
Wise Guy is like a Goodfellas song, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like Joe Pesci rapping.
His career. Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange.
He released an album in 1968 called "Little Joe Sure Can Sing." And because he's like part of the story of the Jersey Boys, right? Like he's a character in the musical because he was like involved in that. And then there was Vincent LaGuardia Gambini sings "Just for You." That was 98. And then in 2019 he released "Still Singing."
Oh my god.
Hey,
the same year as the
Irishman.
Irishman.
Album called "Sorry for Singing."
Yeah, in another 30 years.
Does he have a singing voice, or is it like, "You could be from a star, 'cause I will always love you."
You have to listen to the album.
I've heard "Wise Guy." It's no good. It's very cringy.
All right. I'm going to randomly generate a number now, and then AJ can... Oh, fuck's sake. All right, the random number is...
7.
7.
Back to single digit.
Oh boy. It is a movie I've seen before.
Is it black and
it's
white?
not Citizen Kane.
No, it's not Citizen Kane. It is black and white.
Okay.
If it's not Citizen Kane, but it is black and white.
The Artist?
No.
No?
Is it Hitchcock?
No, it's not Hitchcock.
Is it 12 Angry Men?
Is it Fellini?
No. I thought there would be enough.
Psycho. Not Hitchcock.
It's the greatest movie ever made. It's black and white, and it's the director.
To Kill a Mockingbird?
No.
Is it Kurosawa?
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. Very good, Brent.
Nice.
We're watching and you know what? Usually it's a Christmas movie, but it's also not about Christmas for 2.5 hours. So.
That's right. That's right.
More James sessions. Yeah.
God, it's gonna be full of them.
Overground.
We'll see you guys next month for It's a Wonderful Life.
Save some for next month.
Enjoyed talking to you guys about My Cousin Vinny, our most recent movie yet, and I really enjoyed talking about it. So
same.
we will see you next month. Bye.